Imagine an empty house. The clock marks time slowly. No conversation. No noise. Just the sound of your breathing echoing on the walls. In this silent space, an uncomfortable question arises. Who are you without? Who are you when no one is looking? Loneliness scares. In one health survey made in 2018, 46% of Americans said they felt lonely, sometimes or always. It reveals something profound. We run away from the train because we are afraid. Then we can find. And maybe fear isn't just about being alone, but in being forced to face parts of us that we prefer to hide in an empty home. The mirror is not glass. It's made of thoughts, forgotten memories and dreams. And he doesn't forgive. But what if that isn't an enemy? And if instead of a punishment, she is an invitation, a call to find out who you really are, without the noises of the world. A philosophy always saw loneliness differently. For thinkers like Epicurus, Schopenhauer and Nietzsche, being alone wasn't a burden, but a chance to grow, to rise. What happens when we accept this call? That's what we're going to talk about now. Loneliness is not the same as abandonment. Be by choice only. It's very different from being lost or forgotten. Philosophy teaches that voluntary withdrawal is a form of reunion. No isolation. Epicurus, for example, sought pleasure in simplicity. For him, true peace, call of ataraxia, could only be achieved away from the excesses ands of group life. When we walk away from the noise of the world, we began to hear what was once hushed up. Real desires, forgotten fears, ideas that need space to flourish. Nolar silent, the spirit finds the fertile ground. To transform, conscious is like a portal. To cross it, we leave behind the need for external approval, and in the apparent void, we discover a space full of possibilities. It is in this space that inner evolution starts to happen. But the path is not always comfortable. Actually, the initial discomfort is an essential part of the growth process. And it's about this invisible fight that we're going to talk now. At the beginning, loneliness hurts. Nos. Time seems to drag. In mind, to constant goes into shock. Boredom arises, the anxiety, the feeling of emptiness. Kierkegaard called it anguish. Existential, a deep discomfort that is born from the direct confrontation with freedom itself. No ready-made knees. Nos. We are obliged to create meaning for our lives. A Harvard University study in 2015 showed that many people prefer to take electric shocks to stay 15 minutes alone with your own thoughts. It reveals how much we avoid the inner glow. But discomfort is not the end. He is the beginning of transformation. Or boredom, when I accept, becomes space for imagination. The anxiety, when understood, opens doors to self-knowledge. The empty house doesn't make us suffer. It just reveals what has always been inside us. And this encounter can be scary. But it is also liberating. Crossing this inner desert, we began to notice something surprising. That the previously seen as an enemy begins to reveal itself as an ally. And it is at this point that great transformations start to happen. Throughout history, many of the greatest thinkers chose as the path of evolution, not like escape, but as an affirmation of the very essence. Schopenhauer said that is the fate of exceptional spirits. For him, the deeper, more natural is the desire to get away from the masses. Nietzsche saw as the of the free spirit. He believed that only in the absence of influences external we can shape our true will, discover new values beyond social norms. Months, in turn, retreated to his tower, where he wrote his famous essays that, away from public pressure, can reflect on human nature deeply and honestly. These thinkers show that loneliness is not a punishment, is a fertile environment for the birth of ideas, for identity reconstruction, for the flowering of inner freedom. When choosing thee of home, you also connect to this silent bloodline of truth seekers. And it's in the silent space of the house that we found something even deeper. When at home it falls, she turns into not a glass mirror, but one that reflects what we carry inside without the noise of the world. Our thoughts take on a life of their own. Carl Jung said the real journey is in, and that on this dive, we find not only what we love in ourselves, but also what we avoid facing. The empty home, then, exposes our unhealed wounds, our unresolved fears, our forgotten desires. It's as if every room keeps a memory, an emotion, a secret. That's why many escape loneliness, because to be alone is to be confronted with one's own truth, and few truths are easy to accept. But it's precisely in that brutal honesty that transformation happens. Who resists the temptation to flee, who bears the weight of the knee, begins to see something new emerging. In the center of this silence, a new clarity begins to be born. After the inner storm, something starts to change, or before unbearable becomes an ally. In place of boredom, born in place of anxiety, peace arises. A Buffalo University study in 2017 showed that periods of voluntary increase intelligence and strengthen emotional autonomy. When we are alone by choice, our mind expands. The empty home is no longer just a physical space. It turns into an internal territory where ideas flourish and the soul breathes. The absence of external forces us to create meaning. Life no longer needs applause to have value. Joy comes from within, discreta and serene. What seemed like an unbearable void reveals itself as a fertile field. And it's in this field, silent and forgotten, that we sow the seeds of true growth. But needs to be well understood, not to turn into isolation. And that's what we're going to talk about now. There is a clear difference between being alone and feel lonely. British is rich and productive. The forced isolation, on the contrary, can hurt the soul. Viktor Frankl said that the human being endures as if you have a why. Life in a lonely home needs purpose. Without it, the universe turns empty. With purpose, turns into strength. Living alone can be a privilege, is the chance to build a space that reflects who you are, a home that welcomes, that inspires, that protects your best ideas and feelings. When we fill the label with meaning, every room in the house becomes a temple, a meeting place with what is most true about us. The key is in not using as an excuse to stagnation, but as a tool of evolution. Turn time alone into fertile time. And in doing so, we discover a profound truth about life. When we look at one empty house, we can see one empty, or we can see one sacred space. It all depends on the eyes of the observer. The lonely home is a silent invitation. An invitation to abandon the masks, the taxes imposed, and simply be in its most pure but imperfect, more human. Under the walls, We hear our soul whisper. What the noise of the world hushed. In this intimate space, we are invited to update our history. Brick by brick, memory by memory. Philosophy teaches us that true masters are not found in the busy squares, but in the deep silence of being. The lonely home, if well lived, can become our most powerful master. It is not in the noise of the crowds that we discover who we are. It is in the echo of our own steps, in the shy silence of our forgotten ideas, that we find our essence. And maybe, just maybe, be in the other silent home. May the most beautiful of all revolutions begin. The inner revolution